Today's episode is brought to you by Team France, the soccer team, not the Overwatch World Cup team.
It's high noon.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to High Noon Podcast, the competitive Overwatch podcast. I'm your host, The Blevins. With me, as always, is Deathblow. What's up, buddy?
Oh, not too much, man. Just getting into the World Cup fever a little bit
Yeah,
here.
I mean, I watched more World Cup this last week than I think I've ever watched in my entire life. It's crazy.
Yeah, we've kind of both been getting into it a little bit, watching some. It really kind of grabbed me once Brazil got eliminated.
Yeah.
And because I just kind of thought they were going to win once Germany was out. I really I assumed so. It really kind of opened up the field a little bit, got me excited. And I'm happy for the first time. I mean, we cover so much Overwatch League, and we've got rivalry weeks all the time, and your team was too good for me to ever really join their camp, right? Because I don't want to just jump to the number one team. That just feels weird, right? But now it took soccer of all things to get us on the same page, get us rooting for France.
Yeah, for France, because I mean, the one thing that France has going for it is that it's not Team England, because England. I mean, come on. I want to, we only get to root we only get to care about soccer once every 4 years. So let's just root for the team that's very clearly and obviously going to win.
Yeah, because it's only every 4 years that there's anything in soccer structured well enough to be entertaining to watch. Otherwise, it's just all, I don't know, my interest gets relegated so fast by soccer.
When 87% of the sport is passing, I'm done. Okay.
Anyways,
right,
enough
and scene. Man, Icarium is gonna love that bit.
It was all for you, buddy. All for you.
It went long enough where his blood is actually probably starting to boil before he realizes that it's a bit. But yeah, we figured, let's throw a little bit. I mean, we
love to poke the bear. We
love poking the bear fight. Got a good show planned out for today. Let's talk a little bit about what the world of High Noon Productions has been up to. Blackwatch Report is up with a new episode. Bring us into the new season of Contenders. So that's going to be a good one. Man, it seems like in these last couple of weeks, Contenders has basically just been the best of the best right now. There's no Overwatch League. There's really not anything else. So Contenders is the top quality beef, if you will.
I'm so jealous that they just get to roll season to season. I'm still waiting for the season playoffs from when theirs ended. It felt like theirs ended after our regular season. I don't know for sure what the timeline was. And now they're already into season 2, and we're still waiting for playoffs. So it's great, though. Honestly, it gives you a lot of hope for the off season, right? There's not going to be crazy downtime in Contenders. So if you want to watch some high level Overwatch, you'll be able to. The production value has been getting a lot better at Contenders as well. I've been really happy with what they've been doing over there. I don't get to watch a ton, but once Overwatch League's officially wrapped up, I'm gonna kind of throw myself fully into it and really get down into watching these teams. And honestly, if you guys haven't been listening to Blackwatch Report, make sure you find the iTunes feed and check it out. Because Contenders is now getting all those players that got cut from Overwatch League teams. You've got TZ, you've got Who Y'all, you've got Rascal, you've got all these guys that were over, and so a lot of them are decisively Overwatch League level talented players. Just didn't fit in their current home anymore. When you think of London, a lot of those guys are all good enough. Hagopin's on a roster now too. I forget where they all went, but so the talent level, the compete level is higher, I think, now in Contenders than it was previously, which helps a lot. Especially coming from Overwatch League. If last season felt like a little bit less to you than maybe you wanted to see, I think it's going to get better as they just keep mashing games, obviously. But also they're getting an influx in talent the opposite direction of what we're used to seeing or what we expected to see, I think. So it's been a lot of fun so far what I've been able to check.
Yeah, and with two-way players, we might see, it might just be awesome to see some of those potentially Overwatch League players coming down for a little bit. I think they finally started to feature. They finally started to feature contenders in the actual Blizzard launcher too.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. I mean, it's just a no-brainer, right? Like, why wouldn't you use your own marketing platform to market your tier 2? Like, that it's almost, I mean, it's not more important to market the tier 2 than the actual Overwatch League, but it's got to be similarly, at least in the long run. And like, I guess if it's taking away from Overwatch League, maybe I don't know, but like, use the tools that you have to do it for sure. Or like, maybe retweet it or something. I don't know. But yeah, the contender streams have at times been getting. Didn't you say you saw like a 30K viewer at one point?
Yeah, it was like Australian contenders too. It wasn't even one of what I would consider to be the biggest regions, which would be NA and Korea. So it was definitely great to see. You know, a lot of that too comes down to, like, it was on at a decent time for us too. You know, I don't know what the time zone situation is.
It's a lot of hours, so it
Australia.
Almost like loops back around. Like, it's.
I think it's the future. Yeah, I think it's tomorrow.
It's definitely the future. It's definitely the future.
But Phoenix, send me lotto numbers. I need them.
Yeah.
But
yeah. So
good to see contenders flourishing.
Good to see contenders flourishing. Definitely check out BlackRock's report for sure. All things considered this week, or I think let's see, he did it 6 days ago, so that means that so all things considered is released tomorrow. So last week, so we're at it's released on the worst day for us to actually tell you what's coming out this week, if we don't have the insight from Taco, which I forgot to get. But last week he interviewed Space from LA Gladiators, right? No. Yes. Valiant. No. Valiant was Gladiators. No. I'm just an idiot.
Was 17 at the start of the year.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. I'll just say played in LA. Get it? Because all of them did. Got the interview with Space. Definitely check that one out. I didn't get to listen to that one. I did listen to the Damian Alonso one. That was really good. It's more about the content and writing side. That one was from 2 weeks ago. So definitely take a listen to that and download that one. That, of course, has its own podcast feed as well as a YouTube, and I believe he's got a website too. I think it's OWLTC show or something like that as well. And this week is the triumphant return of Around the Payload, coming back. I've got guests lined up. I've got topics to talk about. We're going to be talking about World Cup, going to be talking about off season, going to be talking about Hammond, all sorts of good stuff. Around the Payload is back finally, after it's a little bit of a hiatus, but don't worry, guys. I've gotten the messages. I've gotten the emails. I know everyone loves Around the Payload. It's coming back tomorrow. So keep an eye out for that, and make sure you follow that, or you subscribe to that one as well. But let's move on to the best segment of the show.
Overwatch Today, meme of the week.
Man, I really need to cue that up earlier because I forget that it has to open up the whole thing. But that, of course, is the Overwatch Today meme of the week. And this one is actually a little bit of a different one that I came across. It is actually an article. And it's not a meme article. It's just, I don't even know. When I read it, I skimmed over the first bit of it. And it's like kind of a meme, but it's a serious article. So basically what it is, it's by Fusion, Beezy, the senior analyst for the Philadelphia Fusion. I'm sure you guys have seen him on Twitter and whatnot, but he did what he's calling the Beezy Deviant Awards. And if you guys are familiar with him, he does a lot of statistical analysis and a lot of stuff that is involved with stats and statistics in general. So what he did here was he wanted to find the biggest statistical single game outliers. So not even just which person did the most damage in a single game, but other kind of obscure stuff. And what he did was he measured it in standard deviations. And I'm not going to go into this isn't 12th grade statistics class, so I'm not going to go into what standard deviations are. If you don't know what they are, make sure you go to class next week, guys.
After you do, DM me and remind me, because I don't remember.
Okay, so basically, standard deviation. I'll paraphrase it here. the it's talking about, are you familiar with like a bell curve,
Mhm.
and like right in the middle of the bell curve is the average, and each it's each jump over is another group of people, and that one jump is one standard deviation, two jumps is two standard deviations, and like the more standard deviations away from the average, the fewer people that are in it. So what he was looking for are these performances that are the furthest or the most standard deviations away from the average on different things. So, for instance, Shaz's game on Kings Row defense versus the Shock during stage 2, he was 11.1 standard deviations away from the league average for healing. So I know that's a mouthful, but he played Zen. I'm quoting here from the article. Shaz played Zen for just over 3 minutes on this round and healed for a total of 9,760. And when you break that down into healing per 10, he had 31,831 healing per 10 minutes. This compares
league average of 6,800.
Yeah, the league average is 6,000 per 10 minutes. So, and what's notable about this one is that he also was 10 standard in the same performance. He was only looking at single game performances. Deathblow can post a link in the chat to this. This is an interesting one. He also had. He also was 10 standard deviations above the league average in the same game for shots fired, ultimates earned, ultimates used, shots hit, and damage done on Zenyatta. All in the same game. Just like the most just statistically amazing game per 10 minutes in the league. So it's just... and the whole article is stuff like that. So definitely give that a read.
Better than Jonak confirmed.
Actually, now that I think about it, don't give this a read. Delete this article. No,
You
it's
just
definitely
gave me
a good one.
statistical evidence that Jonak is the second best Zenyatta in
I
Overwatch.
don't know what you mean. I just deleted my Medium account. I don't even know where to find that.
I'm going to use it.
Yeah, but I'll post a link to this in the description below, but definitely check that out. It's on Medium. If you guys aren't following Beezy, it's Beezy Work is his Medium name. If you're not following him on Medium, make sure you do, because he's always got good articles on there. But all right, let's move on to our next segment.
It's high news.
A little bit light on the news this week, but we did get a really doesn't actually have anything to do with Overwatch League, but it's just about Overwatch in general in the community, and it's a really good news. So remember that Pink Mercy skin, the like promo one where it was like it supported Breast Cancer Research Foundation. Do you remember that, Death? You could buy it.
Do
for
remember
like,
it.
I don't know. I think it was $15 or whatever. And it's one skin. It was a little bit expensive. Like, I mean, they probably only raised like, I don't know. They probably how many do you think they sold? Maybe a couple here or there.
50,
I mean, I
like
bought
20 of them probably.
I bought one.
So I know Mel bought one, so that brings
Yeah.
us to 2.
Yeah, that's $30. They raised $12.5 million for the Breast Cancer Research Foundation. So just, that's just a clap. I don't have an applause. Of all the drops that we don't have an applause one because we never.
Well, we very rarely say anything worth applauding over,
True.
brothers, but every now and then, Blizzard does something that's great. And
I have
puts us to
three.
shame.
I have three shame bell buttons with no applause button. And I have to use
We know ourselves and our
Yeah,
own content.
we're never gonna have to do
We
that.
got it right. We got it right.
But yeah, huge shout outs to Blizzard for that. That's just an amazing. It's awesome, and I mean, the reason I wanted to bring it up is twofold. One, obviously, it's great. It's great to see the community do this. It's great to see Blizzard have such a success. It's great to see a lot of money go to a really great cause. The second thing is like, this should be a huge indicator for Blizzard. Like, hey, exclusive skins. Let's get them out there. Whether it's a charity, whether it's a crossover promotion, something. Let's get these out there. People want to spend their money on this stuff. Like, I don't know what the numbers for the loot boxes are, but I haven't wanted to buy a loot box in months and months and months and months and months. Like this stuff is awesome. I love this stuff. And I mean, I'm not going to get on my soapbox about how Dota and CS:GO and all them just do items. Specifically Dota, CS:GO less so, but how Dota does their items and cosmetics just a trillion times better than Blizzard. I'm not going to go on that soapbox again. But like stuff like this is really cool. It's exclusive, which means people are going to want it. It's cool for the people that got it. You could gift them too. Like, so if you wanted to get one for someone, it's money going to a good cause. I'm sure Blizzard, even if they're not actually making money off of it, it's not costing them money. They get to make they get to write a $12 million check for a good cause. That's got to be worth something. So, I mean, I hope this is an indicator for Blizzard to do more stuff like this. I'd love to see more like this.
Also, before we move on from the High News section, this isn't Overwatch news. This is more High Noon podcast news. But we are officially like all booked up and ready to go for our trip to the finals here. We've got the hotel. We've got the bus and train tickets and plane tickets, however we're getting there. So we are all set and ready to go. I even bought this fancy camera thing here so I can turn my phone into a super nice, interview recording tool here that wasn't $700 for a DSLR camera. But so yeah, we're really pumped and ready to go. There's been some traffic in the grand finals text channel on the Discord, but please do reach out to us and let us know. Check out that channel, know where it is.
Yeah.
We're trying to coordinate a kind of multi-podcast meetup situation here.
Podcast family.
Yes, so we've got Bob and Mel. We know we're already going to be there. Ja's going to be there. I'm probably leaving somebody else out here. We're hoping to get Omnic Lab on board as well. With that, I not Rob is not making that trip from Japan to New York City, but we know Andres is going, so we're hoping to kind of combine it all into one and find one suitable location where we can just kind of hang out for a couple hours, let people come by, meet us, hang out with us. There'll be a couple different podcasts there, so hopefully it will be a really good time. Hopefully we can get all the logistics figured out for the meetup, but please do, any interest in that that gets expressed there just gives us a reminder and lets us know that people are really interested in doing it. So hang out in the Discord. If you're not there, discord.me/highnoonpodcast. There's a hashtag grand-finals channel there you can use to talk to us. Let us know. We'll give you the location, the day, the time. It's probably going to be after the first day, I would think. After the matches or something like that, maybe before for a little while. I don't know. We'll get everything figured out once we talk to the other podcast hosts.
We'll figure out all the details and stuff. But if you guys are from New York or know New York, or I guess specifically know Brooklyn, because I want to keep it close, because I don't want people to know. People aren't going to come.
We want to be close to the venue.
People aren't going to come if they have to go a million miles.
Right. And people's hotels, if you're traveling, are going to be near the arena. Ours is.
You're going to at least be there. Like you're not going to have to go an additional place and then go back to your hotel.
If you're from there and know any like local spots that would be open to like hosting it and aren't like charging for the space, we just need basically any bar in Buffalo would work.
Just need a couple of tables.
Yeah, New York is a little more cramped, and I also take up, I think, 2 New York seats. So yeah, we got to find an adequate location. So if anybody knows of any or can help us with that, definitely reach out to us as well.
Yeah, right now we are we've got a place we got a place eyed up that I think will probably be suitable, but we are looking for an upgrade potentially. So it's not McDonald's, but it's not that far off.
Not. It's a Buffalo McDonald's, let's be real.
Pretty much. But let's just move on.
Oh, let's break it down.
We're going to the bread and butter. Or I guess this is more like the meat and potatoes of the episode. We just did the bread and butter of the episode. We're going into the meat and potatoes here. This is going to be the deep dive for Gladiators versus London Spitfire here.
Yeah, it's officially playoff week, Blevins. I don't know if it's sunk in for you. It happened to me at work, but like on Wednesday. So like tomorrow in podcast land, 2 days from now in live viewer land.
Yeah.
The playoffs begin. So really, really pumped about that. The long wait period has finally come to an end here, and we're getting down to it. So, last week we took a look at Boston versus Philadelphia, went in depth on that, and now we're going to be taking a look at the second matchup. They do both play on the first day, I believe, and then it's just the conclusion of the Boston Philly match on Thursday, and then Friday is just the conclusion of Gladiators versus London. So we're going to be looking deep at the stats, the numbers, the position battles, and giving you our predictions for London versus LA this week.
Yeah, I mean, I've just been so enthralled rooting for Team France in soccer that I just haven't had enough time to get soaked into. Okay, I'm done. The bit's over. Sorry, I don't care about soccer. Just so everyone knows, we couldn't possibly care less about soccer. This is just a tease to.
That's true, but I do care that France beats England.
That's true. I am very markedly rooting for France here. But let's start off here. We're gonna do it the same format we had last week, where we're gonna go over the matches and the match percentages, and basically just let the numbers speak for us here, and then we'll give any extra input here. So, Death, why don't you start us off with match number 1, London versus LA Gladiators?
Sure. So the match sets are flipped from the other matchup, which is really nice. So on the same day, when you're watching the first best of 5 for each match, you're not watching the same map set. So what was match 2 for the last week's matchup that we previewed is now match 1. And we're looking at the map pool of Junkertown, then Lijiang Tower, Kings Row, Hanamura, and Dorado. We know last week it went down to the wire, to the point where we weren't 100% sure the way the rules worked in match 3 and everything like that.
The more we talked about it, the less we felt we knew who was going to win.
Yes. The less sure I got in my Philly prediction. But going into this one, I think we're going to find a little bit more clarity here. But let's start right off at the top. The very first match, Junkertown, really one of the only outright bad maps here for the Los Angeles Gladiators. This one's going to be in London's favor. London has a 7-4 map record. That's a 64% win rate to the Gladiators 3-8 win rate here. So that's 27%. The one thing I want to say here about Junkertown is the first time this was played was in stage 1. The Gladiators were a completely different team. They only changed one player. They were a completely different team back then.
The player.
Right, the player, yes. They got much more handsome as they brought Fissure in for stage 2 going forward. Now, I did look and check, and they were like 2-3 or something like that the second time Junkertown came around. So Fissure doesn't just clean everything up here, but it's probably a little closer than the numbers indicate. But this is a decisive map total here, win differential. So we've got to give the advantage on Junkertown to London. They're going to start things off strong. Going on to the next map here, we've got Lijiang Tower. This one, I was kind of surprised by London's win rate on this one. Only 50%. They were 7-7 here. I think they're just so bad on Oasis that they just look significantly improved on every other control map. Going over to the Gladiator side, 11-2 for the Los Angeles Gladiators here. 85% win rate. This is very much so a map that they understand and play really, really well. So, got to give this one to the Gladiators here, at least from the numbers game. Now, going into Kings Row, things do level out a little bit. Not too much, actually, looking at it now. But I mean, we've got a 4-7.
Particularly great. But...
No dominant map here for anybody. But London is at 36% win rate here with a 4-7 map record to the Gladiators 6-5. That's 55%. For people keeping score at home. So there's a decided advantage here for the Gladiators. One thing I will say, though, about this one is London... And somebody brought this up in Twitch chat. They're a team that's very hard to figure out how they're going to fit into the new meta right now. I think when we look at what the Gladiators are going to do, you have to expect Hydration to pick up the Hanzo. He's just so good on projectile heroes across the board. Surefour is fast became one of the better Widowmakers in this league. I don't think he started the season that way or thought of as that. Really got there by the end of it, right? Like he caught up mechanically with like the Lynxers, the Architects, the Saya players, the guys that were just doing things that mechanically a lot of other Widowmakers weren't really able to do. And I think Surefour really brought himself up to that level. So we know what Gladiators are going to do. London, on the other hand, has Prophet, who we know can play absolutely anything. It's very much so like, what was the comparison I made? I'm blanking on the... the other name. Anyways, Libero, where he's just like one of those guys that's just top 5 on every hero in the game. Like he just plays at a very elite level on every hero. That's a boon to the team, right? But we've also seen a lot of Birdring playing Hanzo on stream and things like that, and he's been apparently performing really well. I haven't seen a lot of that, but so we're gonna have to wait and see exactly how London adapts to this. And Shrug is pointing out, there's other players on the Gladiators that might step in for hydration if the Hanzo is really prevalent. Silk Thread definitely has a lot of projectile in his pool, but Hanzo's one of those heroes that apart from like Libero, going into this patch, we didn't know who the Hanzo was going to be on teams, and even on teams where we thought we knew, right? We're like Houston, Lynx is really good at that hero. It was one of the few we'd seen. Right. Didn't do it. So I just have no confidence in what anybody's going to play. I wouldn't even be surprised if Asher came out of nowhere and played something, though he's probably just a tracer one trick for them. Things are very, very open on the London side specifically. I don't know which direction they're going to go. Obviously, Prophet is absurdly flexible. Birdring a little bit less so. And if he's going to be their Hanzo, that's like the one hero we haven't really seen Prophet have to pick up and play at a high level is the Widowmaker. It's a very different beast on the LAN client with a high tick rate. It's a little, I think, easier, but it just changes the way shots work and things like that. So I don't know what direction London's going to go with it, but they do have an opportunity to flip things here. And so what was that? That was King's Row we just did here?
Yeah, and the only other thing I'll say, maybe just as a blanket statement about the Hanzo, is like, to echo what you were saying, we don't know who's going to play the Hanzo for any team, really. I mean, we can assume some. I mean, Libero probably going to be playing Hanzo just because of his affinity for it before. But, like, I mean, you look at Shanghai Dragons and, like, oh, well, when Zarya comes in the meta, we're going to be finally seeing Gaguri play Zarya, and it's going to be great. Nope, just didn't happen. She played Diva instead. So even if we've seen players on Hanzo before, we might not necessarily be seeing them here. And also, although it's unlikely, they might not even be able to. They might not be as good on this Hanzo as they were on another one, just because it's so different. Not necessarily. Yeah. It's just not the same hero as it once was. So the Hanzo, I mean, we talked about it last week, very well could be the wild card here for the whole, like, this is basically a tournament right now, right? For this whole playoff tournament, the Hanzo play could be the wild card. So it'll be interesting.
And a lot of people will claim to know the answer, but nobody does, we promise. So moving on here, we're at a 2-1 map score since we got off on a little tangent there in favor of the Gladiators in the first set. We're going into Hanamura now. This one is a pretty close map. I'm not going to lie to you. It's 7-3 for the London Spitfire with a 70% win rate. 6-4, that's 60%. That's so easy when they've just played 10 times on the map.
You should only be able to play 10 times. That's it.
I didn't even need to write it down. I could have just done that one on the fly. So this one is going to be slightly in favor of the London Gladiators, which will push this to a
London
map
Spitfire.
5.
London, you just Shanghai Dynastied the London
Gladiators. Oh, that's a good. That's would have been a good team name, though, right? Yeah, that would have been a good.
That's a pretty good one.
So a narrow is basically flip one result and they're tied, but it's definitely in the London camp here. So they're going to push this to the 5th map. That is Dorado, 6-6 for the London Spitfire. Got it that time.
Now it's going to be invading your brain the whole time.
6-5 for the LA Gladiators. So Dorado's another very, very close map here. A slight edge to the Gladiators. We're not going to go to the Nepal tiebreaker, which is decidedly in the Gladiators' favor. If anybody's wondering on that map in particular, it is 7-6 for the London Spitfire, 11-1. For the Los Angeles Gladiators. So if this goes to a tiebreaker map, I really think London is probably doomed. But nonetheless, we're going to give this first set a narrow win for the Gladiators. Very flippable, though. That Dorado tiebreak, that Dorado last map being as close as it is, that's really anyone's game. But this is the numbers picking, and the numbers have an advantage here. So we're going to go with that. And we'll go into the second map set here. This is day one of the previous matchup. That's Dorado, Oasis, Eichenwald, Volskaya Industries, and then Junkertown to wrap things up. Starting off again, we already know Dorado is super, super close, but a slight advantage here for the Gladiators. Going into Oasis, the whole world, I think, at this point knows how bad the London Spitfire are on Oasis, and they are 5-12 to put an actual number to it. That's 29% win rate. I'll give them credit though. That was we were saying 0-7, 0-8, not too long ago. They really did step things up a little bit here going into the end of the season on this particular map. Might be able to level things out a little bit, but it was a decided advantage here for the Gladiators, so we'll give them that map. Eichenwald is 4-2. This has been forever since any of these teams have played it. Fissure was not on the Gladiators roster the last time Eichenwald came up. If there's a single map that the numbers mean nothing on in this particular set, it's this one. But we do have 4-2 here for London, and then 3-2 for the Gladiators. I'll say this though, 3-2 before Fissure might have been one of their better maps for this team. So there's a really good chance I think the Gladiators do understand this map pretty well, and now with the added mechanical skill and just being a better team now with the addition of Fissure, they have an opportunity to flip that one, but the numbers don't lie. They just deceive. So we're going to give this one to the London Spitfire and go into map 4. It is 2-1 for the Gladiators here so far. Volskaya Industries. We have 6-4-1 for the London Spitfire, 59% win rate. 6-3-1 for the LA Gladiators. That's 65%, which ends the entire series here, Blevins. In the second match, before the final map, we would see the Gladiators win this one 2-0. The numbers to me, those don't sound crazy. Like, that sounds like a very, very feasible set for how this plays out.
Yeah. I mean, it's very feasible, but so the numbers are not, they're not lying. Like, you put it perfectly. They don't lie, but boy, can they deceive, because we've got, first map, 64 versus 27, not close. 85 versus 50, not close. 36 versus 55, that's under 20%. That you could flip that. 70 versus 60, 10%, you can flip it. 50 versus 55, you can flip it. So in the first match, there's a potential, like if you're potentially flipping anything that's under 20% difference in map, you've got 3 flips right there. So I mean, it can go either way. It's just the numbers are pointing towards Gladiators there. And then you've got 50 versus 55, flip. Okay, the next one, 29 versus 60, no flip. 67 versus 60, could flip. 65 versus 59, could flip.
That's bad numbers, too.
Yeah, exactly. Man, it's definitive in a sense, but also it's really not.
Yeah, when you force it to be the decisive factor, the previous win rates, it does shake out to be a solid win here for the Gladiators. Doesn't need to go down this way. Like you said, there's a lot of really close matchups. The one thing that really stands out to me is when we look at the win rates here, like there's exactly one bad map in this pool for the LA Gladiators here, and that's Junkertown. It's unfortunate that it's Escort, and that means they have to play it in literally every set. But at the same time, I mean, there's 4 different maps in this pool that are 50% or worse for the London Spitfire, and then there is exactly just Junkertown that's true for the London Gladiators. So across the board,
you did it again. The London Gladiators.
What is up with them? I don't know.
You did it for the other team that time.
Listen, the Los Angeles Spitfire are going to take this one down.
But you did it referring to the other team this time. That's the funny part. You referred to London as the London Gladiators before, and then you just referred to the Gladiators as the London Gladiators. It's London Gladiators versus London Gladiators here.
I'm just going to stop saying both things, and I'm just going to only go with either cities or team names. Hopefully that'll clear things up. My apologies for that.
That's okay.
I'm just glad it's not Shanghai Dynasty.
Shanghai Dynasty is the worst one. Yeah,
because now I'm not even the Blitz right now. I'm just some guy that can't talk and is an idiot. I don't know. Nobody knows. The Blitz won't remind us either, but he knows, and he's currently being cursed as we speak.
Yeah.
And then somebody pointing out from chat, the Gladiators haven't lost all season.
I was gonna bring that up, but chat spoiled it for me because I was looking it up while you were talking. I'm like looking up. Like, when did
I knew it was true after the acquisition of Fissure. And I don't know that it did. I'm not sure they played in stage one.
Stage one didn't play. Stage two,
Okay.
Gladiators win. Stage three, stage four, Gladiators win. Yeah, didn't play stage
Yeah.
one. And in
no other
preseason too.
Well, we'll kind of save the gesture versus fissure discussion for the positional battles here going down the rest of the way. But yeah, so this one is I think closer than the numbers tell us here from the map percentage. But I do think there's something to the way this shakes out, right? Like we might have some of these maps wrong, but I do looking at the numbers overall, not paying attention to how the matches play out as a result. It does look like the map pool favors the Gladiators here.
It definitely does. But even so, the last time they played in stage four, it was a 3-2 victory for the Gladiators. I just had it up, and I'm not going to be able to find it, so I'm not going to look at it. But they've been close matches. At least the most recent one was close. I mean, they're so, like, it's definitive, but it's really, it's likely only going to take one flip here for it to go the other way. And then with one flip, it's funny because one map here opens up the whole third match, basically.
Yeah.
So, man, you watch along here. If you see, London flip a map here, all of a sudden you London fans can start getting a little excited, and maybe the Gladiators fans need to, tighten up a little bit, because you start seeing flips, and all of a sudden the numbers go out the window. The numbers don't matter when you're on stage. That's the beauty of it.
It reminds me of tennis. Like, you think you know who's going to win, and then somebody doesn't hold serve. And I know that misses a lot of people, but it just takes that one goofy result to just flip things on their heads. And this is definitely more than close enough where we're worried about and keeping track of that for sure.
Yeah, definitely not going to be a walk in the park for either team, unless something crazy happened over this little mini break. But we're not going to plan for that. Any last? So in this scenario, the number scenario, match 3 is not needed, and we don't have the numbers for that. So, but all you need to know is that it's going to be close. It's probably still, like, if we get a flip, just based on the numbers from the other maps, if you get a flip here, and London ends up winning the first set, or they're more likely to win the first set from the numbers. But if you get a flip here and London wins one of the sets, the numbers are still going to tell us that Gladiators are going to win that last set. So it's definitely I don't even know what. Well, we'll talk about what we'd actually put it at the end. But let's move on. Unless you have anything else to say about the numbers here to the positional battles.
It's worth noting. It looks like the Gladiators actually jumped the Spitfire in records, so they would get first map choice in the event that we do make it into that third set. And I think that's really, really important for them, because now they don't need to start on Junkertown, right? Because then London could have just forced them into Junkertown, which they're statistically awful at. And then it really gives the Gladiators the opportunity to go out there. They're going to be picking the first map. Presumably they will keep the hold serve analogy going. They hold serve when they pick map. That means they're going to win out, and they're going to do it before the final map when they would need to go into Junkertown potentially. So it's going to be really interesting to see what, because like you said, everything hinges on that one flip, right? If just one of these goes the opposite direction, but going into match 3, like
exactly one of them, because you could flip it back, because there is, like, Gladiators could flip the Junkertown match potentially. So you need to, London needs the +1 flip basically.
Right.
So, but yeah, it's. I think, if you're a Gladiators fan, I wouldn't say I wouldn't book your tickets to Brooklyn yet, but you're definitely favored here, at least by the map numbers. But let's talk. Like I said, the numbers go out the window the second you're on stage and you're in the game. Let's talk about these 1v1 matchups. Let's talk about these matchups here for this one.
And last week we went really deep into the numbers, and we gave you damage per 10, eliminations per 10. It was awesome.
Those stats, man.
I felt like I was bad at reading the stats, but I wanted to keep practicing and getting better at it. So I go to prepare the notes for this week's episode, and just damage. isn't there. The entire league dealt 0 damage in stage 4. So we're going to forego the stats specifically for this matchup and just kind of give you that gut feel conversation here. I didn't even write down the player name, so I'll have to adjust this as you talk about the first one. But we're going to start things off in the DPS camp, just like we did last week. We're going to look at Surefour versus Birdring. This is the battle of the Widowmakers for these teams. And when we look at this one, this is a very different story here. We got Birdring started out one of the top Widowmakers in the league. He pushed his team through to the stage championship. Who did he beat in the stage championship?
Shut up.
Anyways.
Scoreboard. Scoreboard.
Then all of a sudden, Birdring comes down with his wrist injury, and he wasn't playing well before the wrist injury, and he was really slumping, and then to everything you can say about London, like he did very specifically get back into form a little bit right at the end of the season. He started to come back around, play some pretty good Overwatch, get some kills, pop off a little bit. Exactly what we needed to see for London to really be successful. I think Birdring is the key player in the entire season. At this point, every playoff matchup is your whole season, right? So he's the linchpin to the entire season here for the London Spitfire, who don't ever forget that they cut Rascal in the middle of the season, or traded him, I should say.
Cowards.
The ultimate coward move. So looking at this battle, now we got Surefour on the other side, who started out a little underwhelming on the hero. We weren't 100% sure who the Widowmaker was going to be for them necessarily, because it wasn't one of his signature moves. Then once the tank swap happened, he really, the team recommitted themselves, readjusted their practice schedule, their preparation levels, and nobody was more benefited than Surefour on his Widowmaker. Just absolutely stepped up to be one of the elite, I'm going to say top 5 because I don't want to think too hard about who 1, 2, 3, and 4 are. But he's in that top 5. Surefour is for sure in. I got there. In that top 5. On the Widowmaker hero, and I really think he's going to have an edge here to me. Birdring 100% has the mechanical ability and the capability to win this matchup. This one is close, but I'm going to take the guy that since he turned on has just never shut it off, right? He's just been constantly growing, improving, getting better as the season's gone on. He just had 3 weeks off to keep practicing, to look at where Birdring likes to stand on every single one of these maps, figure it out, learn it. I think he's going to win this, win this battle here heads up against Birdring, but I won't fall out of my chair if it goes the opposite direction. Anything to add on this positional?
Yeah, I agree with everything you said, but here's my qualm, is that London, at least it didn't really pan out as much later on, but at the beginning of the season, and even when, with GC Busan, they were one of the best teams at the run back. So they did it against Lunatic High and Apex. They did it against NYXL in Stage 1, where you play a team, you get the feel for it, and then you run it back, and it's like you're playing against a different team from London. You're playing against a better team. They're much more equipped. They're very well equipped for that. And part of that, and on top of that, rather, was, man, I remember when we were watching the Stage 1 playoffs, and I'm watching my dreams of a Stage 1 championship for NYXL go away almost entirely at the hands of Birdring, just completely popping off. Because, man, like, you can do great in the regular season, and that's great, and you can be a great player most of the time, but, like, how does Surefour perform on the big stage, on the biggest stage? How does he perform when it's crunch time? I mean, Gladiators have not won a stage championship, which, I mean, they've gotten there at least, so they've had their chances, but I don't know, my gut, just remembering back to that map on Dorado and Birdring, just like completely stonewalling NYXL, basically single-handedly Birdring. It's just, it doesn't matter what your averages are. What matters is your single performance, and Birdring has had some of the most stellar single performances I think I've ever seen. So I'm going with Birdring here.
I can't blame you. I just like I said before, I'm going with the consistency, but this is that close. We've talked about this going in. We've had the who can unseat New York, and London was a team that came up, and I'm not sure the Gladiators were more than just kind of a team that they just keep getting better, and they might have a chance. We don't know what they'll how they'll be playing at the time, or that's not the case with London. We need them to get back to what we know they can do. So it's a safe. I think that's probably the safe bet in this particular positional battle to take Bird. So I definitely don't blame you there.
Yeah, it's the beauty, or I guess depending on how you look at it and what you like, the beauty of the playoffs is that your average doesn't matter. Yeah, your average doesn't matter. You can be, I'll go with a baseball analogy here. You can be batting 400 during the season. It doesn't matter if you can't hit in the playoffs, or vice versa. You could be complete garbage, but some people, just for some reason, the pressure hits them the right way and they turn on and they just completely pop off in a format like this, in a game like Overwatch. That's the game. And like we said, it's going to take one map to flip this series potentially, and shift the bar over to London. So, and I think Birdring has potential. It's possible Birdring just doesn't turn up and okay, great, Gladiators win. But man, if someone's going to do it, it's Birdring.
The question that you're asking right now, and I know you don't know that that's what you're asking, is Birdring, are you Joe Flacco? Can you pull the Joe Flacco out and get the job done? Only when it matters. Can you just be completely average all regular season and just be an MVP in the postseason?
Exactly.
That exists in sports. There's no reason that won't exist in esports. 100%. Some people are, just like you said, built and made for that pressure. But
just like some players play better against certain teams for no logical reason other than it just happens every time.
Yep. Like London is just super happy this isn't Houston right now.
Yeah.
But looking at the next positional battle here, still in the DPS side of things, this one's a little bit split. We've got Profit on the London side going against Hydration on the Gladiators side. The Gladiators are known for switching out DPS players. They did a lot less of that in Stage 4 and later on as the year went on, which makes me think that this is going to be Hydration here. Pharah's really good in this meta. I don't know if people know that or not. I still think Hydration is the best Pharah in Overwatch League. So for the time being, I'm going to assume he can pick up Hanzo and play it reasonably well and give them the flexibility that they want here. There's a chance Silk Thread comes in. The problem is with either of these two players, no matter who it is, they have an opponent that I think is in the MVP conversation. Profit is just an absolute beast. I've never seen somebody able to just, I don't care if I'm Tracer or Genji, I'm still better than you. It's just his ability to step up and stand toe-to-toe with anybody on any hero is just beyond impressive. And I don't see how I can, as much as my heart wants every one of these positional battles to go the Gladiators' direction, I can't do this one. I can't even talk myself into considering it.
You're talking there's a different tier level here.
Right. And there's only that Pharah is the only thing that can really push this in the Gladiators' favor. If there's a lot of Pharah maps, I'm looking at you, Eichenwald. You're definitely a Pharah map. Oasis is very Pharah friendly. But looking at the rest of the pool, I guess Li Zhang has been as well. The rest of the pool, though, for the most part, hasn't been a ton of Pharah. I guess that's a decent number of maps, but it's not the majority, and I would need to see the majority of these be really Pharah-heavy maps. But yeah, so I don't know. I'm going to be going with Profit in this particular battle as far as DPS players go. We don't know for sure that they're gonna be playing the same hero or not. Again, the Hanzo shakeup really is gonna make things weird. But breaking it up the way we did, there's no way I can give this one to the Gladiators. Any disagreements there?
No, it's like I mentioned, it's a different tier level of player here. Like you would never. It's just not. No. I don't. Nothing more needs to be said. It's Profit, like you said, MVP candidate potentially. I think if you see, I think there's a tier list probably for MVP candidates here, and it's going to depend heavily on how the playoffs turn out. But like, Profit pops off in the playoffs, very well could be an MVP candidate here. So yeah, no, definitely Profit in this battle.
All right. Well, that wraps things up and moves us, at least for the DPS side of things, and then moves us into the tank discussion, which is easily the most fun of the positional battles to take a look at. If you were living under a rock and not paying attention earlier, we kind of alluded to it earlier, but the two main tanks in this battle for both teams used to be on the London Spitfire.
Yeah.
And Fissure was traded away from London to the Gladiators.
Mm-hmm.
Those chickens are coming home to roost here, Blevins, because now Fissure can single-handedly stomp out the hopes and dreams of the London Spitfire here. I said both London and Spitfire. I got it right. I didn't screw it up. I'm very proud of myself. I mean, if this was a battle of just, who's the most handsome, we all know who would win. But really, I think for most people, this comes down to the #1 tank in the world versus the #2 tank in the world. And I'm not telling you which you have in what order, because I don't think that there's necessarily a solved answer here.
Yeah.
But I know which one is more important to their team. And I think which one has a team that believes in him a little bit more. Mm-hmm. I don't think Fissure could do anything wrong in the eyes of any of the players or staff on the Gladiators. I think they trust him implicitly. I think they follow him, to his death, literally, if they have to. Like, and there's something about that level of team synergy that if we're talking about mechanics, this one's very up in the air. But if we're talking about which player I think is going to give his team a bigger boost and going to help his team win more, I think it's Fissure, hands down, game, set, and match. Now, Gesture has at times been beaten up. I know in particular, Muma got just in stage 4 brutally beat Gesture up pretty bad in stage 4. I think the disconnect between the tanks is a little bit at play here for what went wrong with the London Spitfire. All the switching they did, it was Fury, it was Wu Yall, all the swapping really kind of disrupted the synergy there for the London Spitfire. Not anything the Gladiators have had to deal with. Regardless of individual performances, as a team, they've continued to grow since acquiring basically all season long, right? Because they were improving in stage 1. They just were pretty far down there, and then they made that big jump. So I'm giving this edge to Fissure. It's a little bit of a tie, right? Like, we've got the close mechanics here between the two of them. They are my #1 and #2 tanks right now, but Fissure's my #1, and it is close. But when you factor in the team synergy stuff, the impact he has, the trust the team has in him, I think that he's got a level of commitment for all 5 of the guys that line up behind him that Gesture doesn't have, because there used to be 11 guys lining up behind him. And it was just very iffy. And so, I don't know, anything to add here, and who do you take in this particular battle?
It is tough, but to quote Monty, who's better than Fissure? Nobody. It's not. You don't root against. You can't root against him. You can't pick against him. It's just not good. Now, granted, if there's someone that you are going to pick against him, it is probably Gesture here. But no, I'm going with Fissure. You put it perfectly where even though they're very similar in terms of their mechanical skill, it's Fissure is a much bigger percentage of his team in terms of value than Gesture is. Even if, this isn't what we're looking at, but even if Fissure dominates this battle, it's not necessarily going to be a Gladiators victory. Where if Gesture wins this battle, then it's going to hurt the Gladiators more so. So if you're looking at it from that aspect, maybe you do pick Gesture. We're not picking them for any particular reason, so you can do whatever you want. I guess just who you think is going to win this battle. And if I'm going to do it that way, I'm going with Fissure.
All right, so moving on here, we're going to the off-tank battle. This is another one that's a little bit iffy as far as who's going to be playing. And for the first time, maybe ever, that question's on the Gladiators side of things. They did a little bit of split play here as far as their off-tanks went in stage 4. They played Bishu a little bit. They played Void a little bit. They swapped them in and out. not 100% sure how I feel about that plan of swapping them in and out. But they're going against Fury on the other side for the London Spitfire. If there's a single player in this league that I don't have a firm opinion on, positive, negative, or anything, it's probably Fury. I always kind of low-key preferred Huyal to a slight extent, but it was never by a large margin enough where I felt it was like really, really important to the team. Fury's just a solid off-tank player. When we look at the other side of things, we've got who was talked up to be, as he signed with the Gladiators, one of the most mechanically skilled off-tank players in Void that came on and joined the Gladiators team. And then we also had conversations where, like, Fissure did an interview where he was talking about, like, players with Bishu's skill set. And by skill set, I mean really good at Overwatch, really good at speaking Korean, really good at speaking English. Like, that he was going to be one of the most valuable players going into season 2, and come contract renegotiation time, he was going to draw a larger price tag because of his ability to translate and really, just really kind of fit in and make the team kind of fit together, right? Like, they have the Korean pieces and then they have the English speaking pieces, and he kind of felt like the glue that held them together. And then when they brought Void in and he started playing, it's probably not fair, but I can't get that King's Row map out of my head where the dude just whiffed on like 14 graviton surges. It felt like he's just throwing them anywhere into the sky. It didn't seem to have any rhyme or reason or accuracy. It didn't seem like he was paying attention. And you could see his frustration on the stage. So it was just an off day. Yeah. And it was just kind of a one-off issue, and it wasn't going to be a repeat problem. But I can't get it out of my head, Blevins. And like I said, I know that's not fair, but this is the playoffs. You don't get to just, and we talked about the importance of flipping one map. Yeah. So if Void goes out there and he throws just one goofy grav, and all of a sudden they lose King's Row, and it was a map they need, like, it's a game changer. It messes with the entire flow of the match. These things are going to be very momentum based and swingy. I think we're going to see maps that don't make sense. We're going to see teams with win rates like the Gladiators have on Junkertown beat teams with better win rates than the Spitfire have on Junkertown, just because momentum is going to take it away. And there's going to be teams that go, oh, we're losing, and then it's all over, and then they're just going to collapse. And then there's going to be teams that rally behind it and stuff like that. So I really worry about teams that players that have these kind of single inconsistencies, because if they rear their heads now, if they show up now, that's it. It's all over. So from my perspective, if this was Fury versus Bishu, I think I would have a different result, but I don't have confidence that the Gladiators are going to stick with Bishu. I think they're going to continue to try to use Void. Yeah. I think it's a mistake. And because of that, I know I didn't have glowing things to say about Fury just a minute ago. I'm going to give this one to Fury because I think at the end of the day, he's going to be consistent. They're going to know what they're going to get from him. I don't think there's going to be ups and downs with the roster position. It's very hard to evaluate off-tank talent, right? Because either you hit a huge diva bomb, you're Poco week 1, stage 1, and everybody just thinks you're all of a sudden the best diva player in the world. Or, you're voiding out on King's Row, and you just look, and everywhere in between looks very similar from the spectator's perspective that we get on the stream. So I'm not confident in this one because I think the Gladiators could win this battle if they play mostly Bishu or all Bishu. But I'm going to give this one to Fury because I'm not sure Void's not going to come in. I'm not sure switching these guys out is the correct move. So I just have question marks on the Gladiators side where I don't have them really on the London. So it's one of the only positions they don't have question marks on the London side. So I'm going to give this one to Fury. Who do you got in this position?
I'm going almost completely opposite of what you said. I'm going with Void specifically here. And here's why. You get the time off. I mean, there's got to be something going on with it. Part of it's got to be communication, right? Because that's got to be tough to come in. And even like a lot of the players that have Houston, for instance, was doing the NA players were using some Korean call-outs for I'm blanking.
Discorder.
No. Arhan. For Arhan. I'm like, I know there's an AR. I'm like completely blanking. they're using Korean callouts for Arhan and like doing things to help them. And like Void comes in, he wasn't playing that much. Like he didn't have time necessarily to get in. Yes, he had an awful game. Everyone's gonna have an awful game, but in the playoffs, like I said, your averages don't matter. You need to have spectacular performances, and I think if they're going to get one, it's going to be out of Void. Now, that might be spectacularly bad or might be spectacularly good. But, you know, maybe that's what they need if they're down or if they're, you know, maybe on Junkertown where they're not favored and they don't have a good strategy. Bring him out. He's the wild card. I want to see the wild card. I want to see Pine in the playoffs. I want to see a lot of Pine in the playoffs for NYXL. I want to see these wild card players come out and really give us a show, put on a performance, screw consistency. It doesn't matter. You get one shot, and that's it. Let's make it a big one. Make it a flash. I'm going with Void.
All right. I didn't see that coming. I did. Oh man, that was a surprise to me. I'm glad you talked for so long because there was a good portion of time there I was basically speechless.
Just completely dumbfounded. Yep, that's what you get here on High Noon Podcast. You're not going to get the run-of-the-mill commentary. You're going to get the wild card commentary because I'm rooting for the wild card because I am the wild card. Let's go.
It might be really good wild card commentary. It might be really bad wild card commentary, but we won't know which it is until the match is over and we're talking about the next week. So
right.
We won't have
and
to.
All I've got to say now's a perfect time for me to announce this. I'm going to be the starting Brigitte player on Team USA Overwatch World Cup team. I'm the actual wild card. I'm coming in. No, I'm not. That's not true.
They're not even letting him sell concessions yet.
Yeah, I can't even.
USA still has a chance in this one. All right. Well, that wraps up the tanks, and I think we split on both of them. I don't know.
We picked Fissure. We definitively picked Fissure, and then it was a split. Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we're 1-1-1-1.
Okay.
I think.
So still not really from a positional battle standpoint coming to an answer here. Maybe we can do that on the support side. But going on here, we're going to talk about Shaz versus Bedosin. We're going to look at the Zenyatas here first. This is honestly probably, I mean, as good as like Surefour Bird Ring is. If Prophet played the Widowmaker, that would be the headline battle, right? Yeah. That was the Surefour versus Prophet, but they don't. And right now we're looking at, in my opinion, these guys are number 2 and number 3 as far as Zenyatta players go in Overwatch League. Shaz and Bedosin have both been absolutely insane on their respective heroes.
Shaz has the most deviant performance of the entire season,
and despite what that sounds like, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so listen, Shaz, I've been a big fan of his for a while. He was in that, you know, the group of players. He's the one that panned out in the group of Zenyatta players that I was a fan of coming into Overwatch League. I'm giving this to Shaz. I'll lead with the answer here. Bedosin has been really, really good, and this is a close battle here. And for once, I'm going to take the Blevins side of this argument and go with the guy that has, because I feel like they're both very consistent, right? Like I don't see really bad performances from either one of these guys, but I see more standout, what the heck just happened performances on the Shaz side of things here for the Gladiators. So I'm going to be giving this here. I mean, it's those plays, right? I don't remember specifically that run because he only played 3 minutes of Zenyatta, but apparently it was a world-beating, most phenomenal 3 minutes of Zenyatta.
Kings Row defense, stage 2 versus the San Francisco Shock. Yeah,
I'll have to go back and watch it.
Yeah, I want to go back and watch it now.
But we know it was there. We know there was. I mean the fadeaway right click that killed Bonnie, that haunts my dreams on Oasis from Shaz. Like there's just single performance and single moments where Shaz does things that I'm not sure nobody but Jonak could do, and some of them I'm not 100% sure Jonak could pull off. Not to say Shaz is better. That's not what I'm saying. But you know, every player has their strengths, their positions. Said
earlier this episode.
I might say it again later. I don't know. You're the one that gave me the stats and the numbers, my man. I'm just using
fault.
They don't lie. They just deceive. Remember. So this one is razor thin on Shaz versus Bedosin, but I think this is, I mean, the chat's talking a little bit about, is Anna going to see play? There's not been a minute of Overwatch where it's been Zenyatta lists other than the Lucio Moira compositions, things like that. But those are so infrequent. I don't think we need to overly concern ourselves with those. This is going to come down to Zenyatta versus Zenyatta. And I'm giving this one to Shaz by, like I said, by the razor thin margin here. I don't have much to really go on because I don't have anything bad to say about either one of these players. I just have a little bit more PogChamp moments from the Shaz side of things. Who are you taking in this battle? Are you going to flip the script on me again and just completely blow my mind?
It's like, a lot of times I like to take the wild card, but I'm going with consistent. No, give me the wild card. Give me the wild card. Give me Shaz. I want to see an even more deviant performance from him. That's what I want to see. I just think, I think a lot of Overwatch League and esports fans it's weird for us to think, as we've been watching sports our whole lives and playing sports our whole lives, this might be some people's first playoffs experience, especially the little kids in the Overwatch League that watch the Overwatch League. This might be the first time that they see playoffs and experience playoffs and realize that even though you're playing the same exact game, I guess it's technically different, but for the most part, you're playing the same exact game. In baseball, you play the same exact game. In basketball, you play the same exact game. In Overwatch, it's a little bit different, but you're playing the same game you've been playing for 40 matches, and yet there's something in the air during the playoffs. Anything can happen. The wild cards come out, they perform, they do crazy. The performances that you talk about, and they come from players you never expect. You never expect someone to hit 5 threes in game 5 of a playoff match when they barely ever play. But some players come in, they just are spurred by the playoffs. Maybe they're spurred by the crowd, by the excitement, by the adrenaline, by the preparation they've been doing. Something is different. Give me the wild card every time in the playoffs. Even if it doesn't pan out, it has that, the consistency is whatever. And at the end of the day, it's the backbone of your success, but it does not matter nearly as much in a tournament setting. We've been talking about this for years now, literally years, where there's a huge difference between playing a league and spiking a tournament. You need to be playing good that day, and you need to be playing good in that specific match to spike a tournament. And this is all this is. This is competitive Overwatch, bread and butter, back in the old days. This is one tournament that we're playing. It's a playoff. You need to spike it. You can't coast through it.
Playoffs. We don't have damage numbers here. This battle is close enough. I'm going to give you the numbers we do have. For Shaz eliminations, again, all these stats are per 10 minutes. Shaz is at 12.78 eliminations. Badosin is at 12.14. On the death side of things, we have 4.41 for Shaz, 4.56 for Badosin. Healing is the one where things get a little, there's a little bit of a buffer here. As far as Zenyatta players are concerned, Shaz wins the healing numbers, right? He's the Jonak of healing on Zenyatta, right? He is actually
he had 31,000 per 10 that one game.
Right? But that was stage 2, not factored into these numbers, to be clear. So the numbers are remaining ridiculous throughout stage 4. Shaz is at 8,374 to Badosin's 6,448. To put a bow on that, both of those players are above Jonak's healing, which is 6,126. So these guys, there's different styles of Zenyatta. There was a lot of talk earlier in the season about Jonak syndrome and everything like that. These aren't guys that, to a lesser extent, Shaz is a little bit, sometimes does pop off and have those numbers. Yeah. He's the number 2 in eliminations behind Jonak here. Badosin's got Kareev and Neko in between them, and Neko doesn't even have a starting job anymore, so he's got a small sample size. So, these guys are razor thin. I just wanted to point out the stats we do have stack up, that these are slightly in Shaz's favor, but very, very close, and honestly, pretty difficult to predict. But for once, I'll take Blevins' silly wild card theory. And just do me a favor, Blevins, don't ever bet sports. At least not in the playoffs. I think it would be bad for your pocketbook.
I think it'll be good because I get lucky. That's all that I need. I don't
Say,
need
like,
to be good. I just
about
need to be lucky.
45% of the time it will go good for you, I think. But
I only need to hit that one, man. Come on. Dollar and a dream.
don't know that that's how betting works. But anyways, we've got one more positional battle to look at. And this one is really, really interesting because this is Big Goose versus Nuss or Closer because they did some switching of these particular players in the fourth stage, did London. Big Goose, however, does seem, if there's, I want to be very clear here. A lot of people have given Big Goose a bad rap about his performance on Mercy recently. I just want to say this man is not a Mercy player. Okay,
Yeah.
no, it's the role he's going to have to play. They've only got 2 supports. There's no other options. And honestly, I think he's improved as the season's gone on. But he came in as a Lucio main and has had to adapt and adjust as a lot of other players have. I don't think he's been as bad as people thought, right? I think the Gladiators play a very aggressive style where they push forward and they kind of leave their supports in the back to fend for themselves and you know, pocket each other a little bit. Now, Big Goose has been caught out. He's not the best Mercy player in the world. But on the other side of things, we've got this indecisiveness that I've already shown in this matchup and the positional breakdowns here to really not like very much and to really kind of shy away from. And I'm honestly having this conversation right now, not 100% sure which direction I'm leaning on this. So, Blevins, why don't you go first and talk to us about these support players? Maybe you can sway my opinion by just letting me go to the exact opposite.
I have the right answer here.
Okay.
It's
not a small goose.
No one. He's not certainly not a small goose. B, even though the Gladiators have had success, and maybe Big Goose has been good here and there, I can't recall a specific moment where he's used his high noon bump. So maybe he's just been cashing it. He's just been banking it this whole time. So, I mean, if you've got a high noon bump in your pocket, you're going to use it now. And there's no amount of evidence or convincing that you can give me to make me think that something's worth more than a high noon bump. So easiest Big Goose in my life. Big Goose in my life.
You're 1,000% correct. There's nothing more important than a high noon bump or boost in the pocket. High noon bump, yeah, in your back pocket. The one thing I will say is I'm worried he did use it because that beard went from scraggly and I was telling him to shave to like
It's
legitimate.
Nice. No, that's not a high noon bump. That's him embracing the high noon world and actually increasing the value of his bump. If he shaved his beard and tried to use his bump, it might get denied. I have to check every single bump request and accept or deny it.
Doubling down on this, which makes me 100% positive. Listen, I'm going to go with Nuss and Closer on this one in particular. Listen, as much as I don't like the inconsistency here, I think I really haven't been disappointed with either one of them, right? Like, to me, the support problems that came from the switching previously was due in large part to Hagopin coming in over Badosin, which Hago's a very solid Zenyatta player, a very good Zenyatta player in Overwatch League standards, but he wasn't Badosin. Like I said, Badosin's my number 3 Zen. It's Jonak, Shaz, Badosin in that order. So to me, looking at this, I never really blamed Nuss or Closer for any of the problems that happened on the support side. Maybe I was just focusing too much on the question I thought was more questionable than the other one. But I don't know. I want them to pick one of the two and stick with it, right? Unless they get desperate and they're really far behind, and then you just try to switch something up. But I almost don't care which one of them it is. I think they're going to get a solid performance. It's a little bit like Fury here, where I'm like, Big Goose has the chance to go either direction with it. He could stand on his head. He could be invincible. He could just be the fastest Mercy player in the world and unable to be shot out of the sky. Or he could just pull a Bonnie and stand on self-destruct from the other team. I really don't know, because I've seen both from Big Goose, and I don't know that I've seen that negative side, at least to the same extreme, from Nuss or Closer really at either time. So I don't know. I'm a little bit torn here. I do love me some Big Goose. I mean, he's not a small goose. I made an emote in the Discord server for him, Honka S, if you want to use it to show your Gladiator support. But I'm going to give this one. It's closer than I think people think, and that's not a pun on the guy's name, though it could be. Sure, it was. It was a pun. Why not? Let's go with
you dropped the ball there. That was a great one.
I should have just. I
was about to flip my vote, but then.
But Yeah, so I don't know. I'm going to give this one to the London Spitfire here, which I think makes me split across the board in all three of the categories. So this one is, as I think, really, really close from a just lining up the two teams up against each other and seeing what happens. What are you? Well, we already did your take on this one, so I guess we've just kind of got to give our picks here and wrap up the show.
Yeah, man, there's so many factors here. Yeah. And they both, every factor I look into makes me think one team over the other, like the other team, and then it will flip back, and then the other team, and then it flip. So, man, my gut, if I had to pick without thinking, I would say LA Gladiators here. But I think with a little, I mean, the Gladiators has not actually ever lost to London. They have Fisher. Do I need to say anything else? But
super handsome.
It's Gladiators have looked better more recently than London has, but London has performed in a playoff setting. They've shown that they can win there. They arguably have a more technically skilled team overall. Maybe I mean that's probably a wash, but the other thing, and I mean, they haven't really shown this, or they haven't really had the ability to show this in quite some time, but they are the run back team. They played against NYXL twice in that stage 1 playoffs, and they look like a different team. They completely picked apart and destroyed them afterwards, just like they did to that's how GC Busan was able to beat Lunatic High in Apex. Like, that's what they were doing, and I don't see why, especially with this format, why they wouldn't do exactly that. Now, obviously Gladiators can do the same thing, but we haven't seen that happen from Gladiators yet. So I think if I was picking with my heart, I would pick the Gladiators, but I think if I had to put money on it, I'd go, even though it's an underdog and maybe not all there, my official pick is going to be the London Spitfire here.
All right. Well, we already know my stance on you and gambling on sports and esports. So listen, this one is super, super close. I won't be surprised if London runs the table through the playoffs to just meet New York in the finals, right?
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't blink at all if that happened. I do think, however, with nerves in the playoffs, I'm going to give this one to the Gladiators. Again, it's super, super close. Mm-hmm. The main reason I'm giving it to them is their aggressive play style. I think they're just, by default, the more aggressive team. And I think that's going to bode well for teams in the playoffs. I think your passive, defensive, reactive teams are going to have more of an issue with maybe nerves, and they're going to have less opportunities to have those standout clutch performances that we've talked about, where a team, like, I don't care how nervous LA is, if their plan is for 6 people to jump through the air and land on the Zenyatta on the other side of the field, like, I think people that are shaking like a leaf because they're so nervous are going to be able to pull off that move. And I think it just makes a linear game plan isn't a problem unless it fails. Yeah. And with the Gladiators having won every time in this particular matchup, I think they were the better team leaving the season. Like, it's really only when you start to look at the specifics, right? When you look at the individual matchups. In individual matchups, I think you can very easily throw out the window when you have team performances that don't line up to be that close. And I think that's what we're seeing here. I think the Gladiators have a beat on London. I think Fisher's motivation and confidence and their aggressive play style are going to carry them through, get the win. All that goes completely out the window if London wins the first map, though. I'll say that much. It does get a little crazy. Maybe not the first map because that's Junkertown. We kind of expected. But if there's a 2-0 lead for London to start match 1, then I'm probably just flat wrong here. Because that means that the Gladiators would have lost Lijiang Tower, which they're an 85% win rate on. So this one can slip away from them. They're not a team I have that clutch confidence in, right? Like, I'm more confident in London's roster and in the moment, right? We've seen them win the stage playoffs. We know they're capable of closing out the big moment. That's not something we've seen from the Gladiators, but at the end of the day, I'm picking the better team, I think, here, at least as the season closed. Gladiators are the better team. I think the play style favors them. And I go back to the maps, and I think that's just, at the end of the day, even if things really level out and London steps up, I think that's going to be the final straw to break the camel's back, the thing that kicks the dominoes over and starts the chain reaction. Just the maps favor them. There's nowhere they're uncomfortable except for Junkertown, and they only have to play at like map 1 and map 12 of the series, and then probably not again unless it goes the full distance in the last map here. So
yeah, the numbers definitely favor LA, but you know how I am. I don't care about the numbers. Pick them in the hat. But yeah, that's the man. I was not thinking that these playoff deep dives are going to be this close. I mean, I'm glad they are, but right. I was thinking there was going to be a little bit more clarity here.
Yeah, the one that it still blows my mind that Boston Philly looked close on paper, yeah, because in my head it's not close, and I think it's left like literally everyone to really underrate. We're got to backtrack a little bit, right? Because that one does kick us off tomorrow. But man, everything about looking at the numbers tells you Boston is just in that matchup, and they have an opportunity. And it's really just going to come down to, can they get decent play from their DPS players? Yeah. I'm floored that matchup looks close. I really thought, I kind of penciled it in, Boston's going to get creamed. That's going to be our playoff blowout that really kind of disappoints people.
About it, and people were saying 100% Philly.
Yeah, and that's just that just can't be right. There can't be supreme confidence looking at that one. It doesn't play out with the maps. I don't even buy into Boston having rebounded much at the end of last stage. Like, yes, they stopped being Florida levels of bad, right in the end of the stage, but that's not a high bar, right? Like they just because they cleared the bottom 4 teams and started to play better than them doesn't mean they've got everything figured out. So but maybe with the extra time, listen, they wanted coachable players. They have 3 weeks to sit down and coach those players. For the sake of watchability and just getting people hyped up for the playoffs, I do hope that one becomes competitive. I do want Philly to win, though. I don't want to be talking about Boston anymore. I want them to be done for the year. If I can't talk about Houston, I don't want to talk about Boston. That should be a rule. I shouldn't have to do that. But nonetheless, here we are. I'm dead inside, and we're talking playoffs. So we gotta mention Boston. But big week coming up, guys. Yeah. Listen, the Discord chats are going to be popping again. The live tournament talk room is going to be going in full force. I'll be driving that particular ship if I have to. Making fun of any Boston fan that threatens to poke his head in there. But yeah, come join us on the Discord. Have a good time watching the games. If me and Blevins are both around at the same time, maybe we'll hop into a voice chat like we did that one day for a couple maps or something like that. I don't know. We'll have to play it by ear, but I know we're both really excited about the playoffs. Hopefully you guys are too.
Yeah, definitely going to be awesome, and I can't wait to see just like I'm kind of hoping that they're going to like amp up I don't know. They always it always seems a little bit different, the production during the playoffs for the stage playoffs. So maybe they'll ramp it up a little bit more.
An even bigger screen behind the stage.
And for grand finals, it'll be even more. I don't know. We'll see. But
quick question for you though, Blevins, before we officially sign off.
Okay.
Of the 4 teams playing that didn't secure the bye, of the 4 teams active this week, who's the most likely to be being spectated by us in New York in the grand finals?
Who's the most likely to be being spectated by us?
Yeah, who's most likely to make it to the finals of the 4 active right now? Who's kind of your dark horse pick?
So I'm only picking one. Oh, right. Okay, I see what you're saying. It's going to be. I mean, I want it to be Philly. That's what I would love if it was Philly, but I don't know if it's going to be. Probably London. If I had to pick, it's the same exact what I said about this matchup for Gladiators versus London. I'm saying exactly for Philly versus London, and I probably have to go with London. But man, I want it to be Philly.
Yeah, I agree in the sense that I think the winner of London versus the Gladiators is the team that's more likely. To me, that is kind of like, even looking ahead at next week, right? Like that might be our best matchup just, of the two best teams. Like that might be the closest matchup we get throughout the playoffs before the finals. So I really think whoever comes out of that, right? Like both teams could be super bloody leaving it. But I picked the Gladiators to go. My heart wants the Gladiators to go.
Yeah.
I want a reason to buy a purple shirt before we have to go to the finals. So I'm going to take the Gladiators there in that particular fight. But I think we're in agreement, right? Like if London wins that matchup, then I would just flip that right over there. So,
by the way, if Gladiators are playing against New York in the finals, you absolutely cannot wear a purple shirt. Purple will be banned forever. It'll just be banned. No, get him out of here. I'll be the one doing the shoulder checking against D-Pay. There's no.
All I know is if I wake up in the middle of the night and hide your NYXL hat, and we're going to the grand finals, and it's the only day that you've never worn the NYXL hat.
So. Good luck.
I don't know how they're going to... I mean, it could be bad. It could be bad. I'm just saying I have the ability to jinx you out of this one. I might have to take it.
I mean, if you think about it, I'm probably holding them back. They would have never been in a slump if I would have taken the hat off.
I'm just thinking of that train ride back to Buffalo where I'm just sitting there with a smarmy grin on my face the entire time with my belly full of New York pizza, just looking at you trying to act like you're sleeping, but you're just seething with anger with like a pillow over your head. It would be a phenomenal
pillow
train
over
ride.
my head, trying to suffocate myself. Well, we'll see.
I'll secure it down. What are friends for?
As long as it's on camera, who really cares?
You got this fancy camera. I can take good footage.
Exactly. You have your selfie stick now, but it's gonna we're getting derailed. Hopefully, unlike the train that on the way back will be. But it's gonna be it for the breakdown. Hope you guys liked it. I'm trying to think of how the schedule is going to be. We're going to be able to break down the other matches, right? We're going to have weeks.
We're going to have to do 2 in 1 week. Next week, we're going to have to cover both of them, so they're going to be a little less, more shallow dives than deep dives, probably. But we will have an opportunity to kind of revisit and take a look at the next round of matchups after this week plays out.
Cool. Awesome. So we'll be doing that. They'll be doing that, and I'm going to be screaming into the mic the whole time. But that's going to be it, guys. Death, any new, any other things that you want to talk about before we get going, or maybe?
I feel like you're baiting me into something.
Trying to bait you into looking up something.
I know we have one, but I'm not sure we can read it. So let's delay it until next week. I wanted to talk to you about it, and I forgot to do it before the show.
Okay.
I know we have one.
Okay, cool.
We'll wait on it.
All right. So, yeah, guys, that's going to be it for the show. Make sure you leave your reviews on iTunes. Throw a like on the YouTube page. Go to YouTube. Do that. Follow us on Twitter at High Noon Podcast. Join the Discord. It is the best competitive Overwatch Discord there is. There is no better discussions anywhere. There is no
Take that, OW.
Better fans. The OW is not an open group. You can't even, not everyone can join. We're
still better.
Yeah, we're absolutely better. Unless, like, the only thing that they do better is if you're looking to join a pro team, which that's just not a service that we provide. Sorry. Not even a little bit sorry about that. We have the best Overwatch League community out there, period. Not close. Anyone who thinks they have a better one, I will arm wrestle and fight. I'll fight arm wrestle them. I'll arm wrestle fight them.
Show up at the meetup. We'll take you down.
Yeah, show up at the meetup with your community. Yeah, didn't think so. But accepting all challengers. Don't at me on Twitter. But it's gonna be it for the show, guys. Thanks everyone for watching. For Deathblow, I am the Blevins, and remember, it's high noon.
Got his boots and he put on his hat. He threw the coin away that same day. It's in his past and he's not looking back. He says, finding mine now, God's my way. He's not good, but he sure ain't bad. He'll make amends for the sins that he has. He says, I'll change the world one bullet at a time till I find mine.
national anthem.